So we're here in Telluride, and we've been driving Telluride, Colorado for a Q8 exposure event called Q8 Road Trip that they're doing with Audi of America. And so we've had a lot of exposure to Q8 the last few days. Picked it up in Park City, Utah. Yesterday I drove from Park City to somewhere in Colorado, and then down here to Telluride today. And so getting a lot of exposure to the new car. It's a fantastic car. I think the challenge is if you're a traditional car fan and have been trying to buck the crossover trend that's been happening in the industry, this is either your new best friend or your new worst nightmare, because it's a really good vehicle. And the hardest thing I find myself wrestling with is, while I prefer a car, or have told myself for a long time that I prefer a car, it's something that I find I could live with every day and be pretty satisfied on winding roads here through the mountains. On the way down here, it was, while not as flat and a little bit heavier than what you might expect from, say, an A6, it was still so close, and close enough that the better view or the more improved clearance will get you. We did a lot of off-road portions, which were also incredibly impressive. It's like a more like a little rally car than a big SUV, even though it's, the wheelbase is the same as a Q7, shorter overhangs, and of course it's 5-passenger, 6 in a pinch, but really not meant as a 7-passenger. It doesn't have a third row like Q7 does, even though it's on the same wheelbase. It's also wider. This color, Dragon Orange, is very close to Small Orange. It's great looking on the vehicle. Dealers may not like the boldness of the color, but at least dealers who like to move a lot of gray cars. But this car is really, really attractive. This particular one we're looking at here is also a prestige, high spec car. The wheels are smaller that you see on it, even though it's got a year one package. So black optics. Would be red brakes on most of them, but not on the Dragon Orange ones, and I believe the blue ones also don't have red brakes. The wheels are a 21-inch that I think come on the Premium Plus models, and or maybe standard on this as well if you don't opt for the 22s. But they here have been fitted with snow tires, because as you can see in Telluride, it's a little bit snowy and stunningly beautiful. But if you're gonna go up in those mountains, or as high as you can get on the roads, you're gonna want snow tires. They've been a big help. But yeah, off-road. And last night at a dinner event, they had a Sport Quattro there as sort of a, comparing some design language of this car. That, some people might be, a little skeptical about comparing an Quattro to or a Sport Quattro rather, to a crossover. But Audi's added some box flare subtlety to their fenders, and then I'll walk around back here and see the fenders. Again, there's the black optic grille that for now is year one package, and then probably will launch later as black optic. Otherwise, it's body color in that black frame around the single frame grille. These are the optional headlights that there is matrix beam in there, but for now, since it's not legal yet for the United States, it's a software change that they'll be able to do as an upgrade once it's approved for US. So that's something that you can get done when the car's in for a service. Pretty trick application for the US side marker. For all the people who want to paint theirs over and match the body there, it's embedded in the turn signal. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, the box flare elements to the quarter panels. You can see it more back here, the way the sun's hitting the car. And then that C-pillar is probably the most Quattro or Sport Quattro-esque element of the vehicle, which lends itself well to a low-slung crossover like Q8. Really a very attractive vehicle. Again, it's, as a traditional Avant fan and car fan, I have myself trying to be a little bit skeptical of crossovers, but Q8 is really very impressive. My family has a Q7 and we love it. It's great for the kids. A lot of space in it, but it's just not as nimble on the road. This car is much more agile and quite enjoyable off-road too. We weren't on really technical back roads, even though we cruised through Moab on the way down here. It's not like we were doing Lions Back or anything, but These were off-road trails or unpaved roads where we hit a fair amount of mud and snow and were able to drift the car a bit. And it really was about as much fun as, say, my all-road that I have. So I have a B8 all-road, so we'll see about the new A6. How, if and when that comes to the USA, as it likely probably will, how that compares. But inside, the new C&D vehicles from Audi are fantastic. A lot of use of touchscreens for a lot of the switchgear, which makes for a much cleaner look. Even over here, the headlight switch is I don't know that that's not a screen, but it has the same look and feel. And then the 2 screens in the dash with new MMI, because this is just a quick short walk around. I'm not going to get into that here, but very livable cabin, and we've been in the car for 2 days and have a pretty good read on the new MMI system at this point. It's much more superior to the old one. Of course, the leather stitch dash, that is I believe a Prestige level bit of equipment. You can see a lot of camera gear and a sat phone because we're in the middle of nowhere on our way to Moab. But the back seat is more bucket-like than you'll find in the Q7. Still is adjustable forward and backward, but just like the Q7. But the trunk is, no third row. It's interesting, we got into a debate with some of the journalists as to whether this thing should be called Q8 or maybe Q7 Sportback. Audi did do, they got rid of the window framing, so much like the Sportbacks. So that's a design feature much like Sportback, but not as slope back to say an A7 or an A5 Sportback. It does allow them to bring the cabin down a bit. I don't know for sure, I'd have to look at the measurements, but I think this is probably very close to the footprint of the new Lamborghini Urus. I suspect maybe not quite as wide, but you never know. With the SQ8, more than likely the RSQ8 might get a little bit wider. So I mean, again, I don't know that I'm a crossover person, but if a vehicle could sell me on going crossover as my daily driver, this vehicle could certainly do that. The only side of it is it's the 3-liter turbo engine in the S5, S4. It's more than enough in this. It's certainly adequate, I think, for most owners. I think for people who want performance, they'll probably wait for SQ8 or RSQ8 if one comes out. But certainly, it's very, very capable. I own an all-road daily, and of course, with a 2-liter turbo, I have no room to judge on the amount of power this has. It's a whole other level than that. But certainly the performance nut in me wanted more, so no doubt that will be coming. So that's just a quick walk around of the Q8 here in Telluride. We hope to have more later, and we're going to be taking I wanted to use that. We hope to be taking a closer look at the other new CD vehicles soon. A8, A6, A7 that have just hit market. They're sharing a lot of the the MMI and the new technology that's in this vehicle now. Things like, one thing I didn't talk about is the 48-volt mild hybrid system. So this isn't a hybrid like, say, a Prius or even an A3 e-tron, but it uses 48-volt battery and a belt-driven starter to go start-stop much more efficiently. So even when you're cruising with your foot off the gas, it'll shut down the engine. It will do start-stop when you stop the vehicle to light, but even still, you don't notice it like the old start-stop systems. So very, very cool. We're looking forward to taking a closer look at the other CD vehicles, but Q8 is clearly, I mean, Audi's going to sell a ton of them. And even though they're already, I think last year in 2018, I believe they said 47% crossovers now. It is where the market is, we know, but fortunately with that new volume come Avants as well. We're expecting A6 all-road and maybe RS6 later. So for the people who still hold true to Avants, you may get your wish here shortly, but in the meantime, this is certainly a good carryover. It's a very luxurious, great hauler and small family hauler, and certainly it's sporty enough for somebody even maybe who doesn't have kids. So that's about it for now. I'm going to shut down here from Telluride. We're not staying in that house in the background. I just fell in love with it and thought it looked good with the dragon orange paint. Wind's picking up, so I'm going to drop off so you don't have to listen to the gust or me trying to talk over it.